This video is about geologic hazards and just natural hazards in general and how we deal with them, because if you prepare for hazards before they happen, then things can go a lot better for you. So let's start by talking about earthquakes. This one is something that is close to our hearts because we just felt an earthquake in March of 2020, and that was pretty crazy. So if you prepare for earthquakes, then they don't affect you as much and they don't affect your home as much either. Here are some ways you can prepare for an earthquake. You'll notice on the far left picture, this is a water heater. There are some tankless water heaters that are different, but this is like a traditional one. And notice it has some straps. Those straps are connecting it to the wall, and there's one down here too. And that's so that the whole thing doesn't like fall over and spill everywhere if an earthquake happens, because there will be lots of shaking and it can knock over something big and heavy like this and cause problems. Another thing which you can't really see in this picture, or maybe there's one right here, but a lot of the times they will connect water heaters with flexible pipes, because otherwise if they're like really solid pipes like this copper one here, then they can't bend if there's shaking and then they'll break and spray everywhere. But if it's a flexible pipe, then they can bend when there's shaking in an earthquake. This isn't the best picture here in the middle, but this is showing cross bracing. This is in a parking garage, but cross bracing can be used like inside sheetrock walls too in your house and stuff. Cross bracing is really solid in an earthquake because the strong triangle shapes stop the wall from tilting back and forth. So cross bracing is another good thing. And then they also reinforce foundations. So here in this picture on the far right, you can see all of this steel rebar. It's the beginning of a foundation. And later they are going to pour concrete there. So concrete is not very flexible. So in an earthquake, the concrete will crack. But if it's reinforced with steel, steel is more flexible. So if you put steel in your foundation, it will be more flexible and more able to withstand an earthquake. Another thing is connecting, like attaching TVs and shelves and big heavy things like that to the wall. That can be helpful in an earthquake as well. So let's go on to volcanoes. We don't really live near active volcanoes, so we don't have to worry so much about this. But people who do, this picture here on the left is of a lava flow. Sometimes they try to divert lava flows away from buildings so that they don't destroy homes and stores and stuff like that. It's hard to divert lava flows though. I've heard of them trying to do that with rocks, but lava, since it's so hot, can burn through a lot of things. But they can try to divert it. And then this picture here on the right is of an evacuation plan for a city. So if you have an evacuation plan in case a volcano erupts near where you live, then you can evacuate and get out of there and hopefully stay safe. So those are some plans for volcanoes. Next we have floods. You can see here on the left, this house and the other houses here as well are built on stilts, which is good because they're right on the edge of this river. So if the river goes higher, like if the water level rises, then it won't affect these homes. Another thing, if you live in an area that is prone to flooding, you don't want to have a basement because basements obviously are lower and can flood more easily. So being on stilts, and then also if a flood happens, a lot of times people will use sandbags to hold back the flood waters like they're doing here in this picture, or as they have done in that picture. Okay, and then landslides and avalanches. They're pretty similar except one's with snow and one's with dirt. A lot of the times people will build retaining walls like this one here, and that holds back the slope. Another good thing with landslides, if you live in an area that is prone to that, like there's a lot of places here in Utah, especially in the Salt Lake Valley, where landslides can happen. Having vegetation on the hillside helps because the plant's roots actually hold the soil in place. If there's not very many plants on a hillside, then landslides are more likely to happen. And then here on the right, this is a picture of an avalanche. What they'll do in places like ski resorts where avalanche avalanches are like a danger is on a day when there's nobody around, they will schedule avalanche blasting, which is they basically cause an avalanche on purpose when nobody is around. It gets rid of all the extra snow that's built up so that later when people are around skiing or whatever, an avalanche won't happen on accident and harm people. So avalanche blasting is a way to help prevent avalanches by causing one on purpose when there's nobody around. So that's landslides and avalanches. And here is the last one I want to talk to you about. Radon gas is hazardous. It is not good for you, but it is in the soil and water, and from the soil and water it can seep into your home, especially into basements, because radon gas is more dense than air. So it's not going to float up high in the air, it's going to sink down low below the air, because more dense things sink. So in basements is where radon can collect, and if you're spending a lot of time in the basement or living in the basement, you don't want there to be a lot of radon there because it's hazardous to people. So sometimes people have like extra crawl spaces in their basement that's lower, so the radon will collect in the crawl space instead of in the places where people live. Also, here on the right we have a picture of a radon pump, which actively pumps the radon gas out of the basement so that it doesn't build up and become harmful to you. So that's another natural hazard that you can mitigate or deal with. And I think that's the last one. Yep, here's my image sources. So hopefully that was helpful. Good luck on the test.